Each year, hundreds of athletes call Sportsplex West home as they work to separate themselves from the competition through different programs geared to develop athletes to become the best that they can be. Sportsman Media will be starting a new video series to highlight all that is going on at Sportsplex. This series will do a deep dive into the baseball, basketball, softball, soccer, volleyball, and football programs, as well as the strength and recovery programs offered. Welcome to Plexcast. Hey, thanks for joining us for another week of Plexcast. This week I'll be joined by Dave Dirkx, the Waukee head coach.
I'm actually been coaching high school baseball since 1996. So I started when I was in college at a small school up in Allison, Bristow that doesn't even exist anymore. It's been merged, and I was at Appleton Parkersburg for a couple of years. And I moved down to the metro area. I was at Carlisle for 14 years of teaching and 12 years of coaching. And then I got the Waukee job in 2012, and I've been there since.
Very cool. And you've had a lot of success at all your stops.
I've been fortunate.
Yeah.
Very, very fortunate. I've had some really good players, and good players make good records and make coaches look like they know a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
Audience, if you don't know, he actually just got his 600th win this past summer.
That's correct.
So how was that?
It was pretty cool
for you?
It's pretty cool. It's kind of a weird transition because when you start, you worry so much about trying to catch guys that I looked up to in the coaching profession. Like, oh my gosh, he's done this for so long. It'd be cool to get to that, with those guys. And now I look back at it like I'm now one of the old guys or older guys that it took a lot of time to get there. But you can't get anywhere close to that without having good players, because you don't win games without good players. Everybody knows that. And you have to have really good people to work with too. And I've been fortunate to have some really good assistants over the years too.
And congrats on the Hall of Fame as well.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
That's kind of along the same lines.
Yeah, kind of along the same lines as I've been doing this for a while. Yeah. And it does. It's, to be honest, it felt good to be recognized because it's kind of a cool deal. It's one of those things when I started going to those coaching clinics, I'd sit in the back of the room during those banquets and think, man, it'd be kind of cool someday to be up, have that opportunity. And then it was a real surreal moment. Like I'm standing up front thinking I should be back with all the guys in the back hanging out. But it was a cool deal.
Well, especially cool. All the hours you put in at the fields, finally probably feels like it paid off for you, kind of thing.
And you have to love it, as you know. And I do. I spend a lot of time at the field, as you know. And I'm not the only baseball coach that does that. That's just part of what we do. But it's just fun. I still really like what I do. I still like being around the game. I still like being around the guys. And I like to be competitive. So as you get older, you'll realize this. It's harder to stay competitive by playing, but this allows me to be competitive as being a part of it too.
And you kind of touched on it before with talking about previous guys that have been through the programs. Can you kind of talk about different success stories you've seen that you're proud of?
Well, I think I was lucky to have really good guys early on when I got here. My first year in 2012, I know the year before they had won 15 games, and then we had a bunch of seniors that bought in. And I'm not saying this because what I did. I think they bought in because they knew that we could all go the same direction. And we went from whatever they had before, and we won 29 games and made it to sub-state final my first year, which was a pretty good turnaround. But there are a lot of guys that like the game of baseball. And I think if you get a lot of guys that like the game of baseball and you can convince them to go play for somebody else other than themselves, which isn't always easy, and everybody's going the same direction, you have a chance to have a good year. I really believe that. There's times that X's and O's don't mean a whole lot if people don't want to be there.
Yeah.
And I really, and all that stuff, you have to have kids that still want to enjoy showing up to the ballpark. And as a coach, I hope I provide that for kids. Now, some kids are all in about that. There's other kids that I know that didn't feel that way. But you hope the majority of them do.
Yeah. So you actually just had the opportunity to talk to Matt Molenbach, former player, and he's probably on one of your earlier teams.
Yeah, he would have played for us in 2014 and 15. He was actually one of the first. He was on the first state tournament team that I coached here at Waukee in 14, and he had a really, really good junior year that year. And then he played again for us in 15. So he's a first-team All-Stater. Yeah. Super talented kid.
Super talented, and as you know, he's actually going to be thrown in the pro case next week. So, I mean, how's that feel having
it's pretty
seen,
cool.
like the little turnout?
I was actually down in Florida a couple of years ago, and I've stayed in contact with his dad because Dan now umpires. And I've stayed in touch with Matt some too, and I was down there, and I actually went to watch Matt in spring training.
Oh, really?
Which was really cool. And it wasn't a game, but he had a practice day that day. So it was a pretty surreal deal walking on the Twins facility and knowing a guy.
Yeah.
And watched him do his workout, and then we had a conversation after, which is really cool. And people talk about, you can talk about the win stuff and all that stuff, and it becomes, it's cool, but it's not why we do this. I mean, the relationships you build with kids, and some of my greatest friends I've had are baseball people, because you have something in common, and kids like Matt Mullenbach, man, I could go down the list of kids at Waukee that were really good.
Yeah, just turn out arms.
Really
Really
good. Being in our league, you have to have a lot of guys that are really good, because you can say, you could have this conversation with Valley's coach, Dowling's coach, Johnson's coach, Ankeny's coach. We've all had really, really good players. And it's just fortunate to be around that where baseball is really good. It makes it fun. Yeah. So one of the deals is we have a ton of kids, and it's changed. Coaching has changed drastically since when I started. Not only in the location where I was, because I was in a small school, now we're in a big school, but the preparation kids do before the season start has changed drastically. When I started, I remember you hoped you had some guys that would throw 80 mile an hour.
Yeah. Changed a little bit
that's
since then.
changed drastically. And I tell this story. I don't know if you want a story or not, but I tell the story when we played in the state tournament in 2021. We were in Iowa City when Jackson Wentworth was pitching. He was really good. Well, he was facing Brody Breck, who's really, really good. And I was standing in the field, and it was a hot day, and I look at the scoreboard, and it said 98. I'm like, well, that's weird. It is hot. Well, I look up again, and it said 97. Then I finally realized, I said, no, that's how hard Brody Breck was throwing in high school, in a high school baseball game. So then, because we were the visitors, well, then Jackson Wentworth goes out, and he's throwing 92, 93.
Yeah, he throws well too.
Yeah,
he's one of the best guys I've ever seen.
Not only is it hard, it's also he's got a really good curveball, and he's a strike thrower. So I'm sitting here thinking, I'm in a high school baseball game watching the guys throw 98 and 93. You can go down to Principal Park this summer and watch a AAA game where the velocity's not that.
Yeah.
Now they're different, good, but the type of player we get is more, I think they're more skilled. And I wouldn't say the top guys are more skilled. We've always had top guys that were skilled, but the number of kids that can play has increased. And so my role, going back to that question, the role for me as a coach is to try to get all of those guys to buy into something that we can, as I said earlier, go in the same direction. And that's hard, because we're all competitive. You were competitive. You wanted yours. You wanted to hit well. You wanted accolades. That's what everybody wants. Yeah. But unfortunately, for kids to get accolades, you have to have a good team to have that. Everybody wants to play in a state tournament. Well, you can be the best player in the state, but if no one around you is worth a darn, you don't have a chance to get to state tournament. So my role is trying to get kids all going the same direction. I think is probably the most important role I have for us to be successful. Because there's kids that play.
Yeah.
That can play. There's kids at Valley I can go around each team in our league and say that kid's really good and that kid's really
Everybody's
good.
Everybody's got some dudes on their team.
Everybody's got guys that can play. So the role of coaching, yes, we try to teach technique. Yes, we try to teach skills. We try to hone fundamentals. But sometimes the ability to have kids all want to be there and work towards a goal and play for somebody else is probably our hardest job.
Can you kind of talk about this year's team a little bit? Like Braden Billings, Danielson, some of the guys that recently committed?
Yeah. We had a really interesting year last year, and I thought we were a talented team a year ago. Our record didn't really match what I thought how we played at times, but we lost a bunch of close games. And then, in our league, if you lose close games, your record's
Still lost, yeah.
Still lost. Or the year before that, or a couple of years, we won a lot of the close games. So then your record flips in a hurry. I mean, it can flip drastically. So, you talk about Braden Billings, Nate Danielson, and we had signing day the other day, and we have 5 kids that are playing for us this year that signed to either go JUCO or Division III, which I think is great. And they all had a lot of experience a year ago. So we're hoping that experience will take some of those close games and flip it. Because there's going to be close games, because we said our league's hard. So we're hoping that with some of that experience, they won't get, I don't know if shock's the right word, but you get in that tight moment, and for the first time ever in a high school game, because it's different. High school is different than fall ball, and it's different than spring
when you
ball.
learn the most, those close games.
Yeah. And it's different when the fans are there. You can say you can play spring ball. Well, the fans aren't the same as there are at the high school baseball game. And I'm hoping with Nate had a really good year on the mound. Braden's going to be able to pitch for us and play pitch, hit, and play defense for us. I mean, we've got some guys that have had experience, so I'm really hoping that helps. And I think we have some young kids that are really talented that will be able to help us as we go, too.
Can you kind of talk about the splitting up schools and how that kind of changed everything for you? In your decision on to stay at?
No, okay, so let's first go over my decision to stay. I have Ankeny Centennial's baseball coach, Mark High, and I have become really close friends over the last decade. And Ankeny went through the split, what was that, 6 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, whatever it was. And I always asked him, I said, how did you know where to stay or where to go? And he chose to go to the new school. And he said the only reason he was going is because the people he taught with, that he likes to work with every day, were going. And he says, in time, no matter what school he stayed at, he knew he was going to have good baseball players, but he wanted from August to season to be good, because you're going to coach baseball for 3 months. And once you get to summertime, you're not in a building anyway. So I really took that to heart and thought about that a lot when we started talking about getting a split. So if I can go to work from August through May and enjoy walking in the building to work every day for 8 months, I'm okay with what happens in the summer. And I've said that to other coaches, like, yeah, that's bull, that's no way. But I really believe that, because we have good players. Northwest has good players. So it's going to be a wash in time, in my opinion. There's going to be years where we're going to be a little better. There's going to be years when they're going to be better. It's how the sport of baseball goes. So that was my decision in staying. So when it split, it was really weird, because the year that I talked about the Brody, Breck, Jackson Wentworth deal, I had kids from both schools playing as juniors or a part of the team as juniors. So we go to split, and the split's pretty even. And then we're both fortunate enough to make the state tournament, which made it even weirder. And then, of course, we get paired against each other, which sucked. Because I walk out and I look out and I see Anthony Watts, who's really good. And I'm thinking, well, he pitched varsity for me as a sophomore and a junior. And I'm like, now he's out there and he's trying to kill us. And, Devin Doyle, I can go through the names of the kids we split. And I think I'll always remember that, because it was such a weird coaching atmosphere for me. And because I'm sitting there in the third base box and I'm looking at this guy thinking, man, he's really good. And I said, a year ago, he was on my side.
He was pitching on my team.
He was on my guy. And the kid up to bat now, he was on my team last year. So it was really weird. It was unfortunate we got beat that day, but, you put Cam Kaufman against Anthony Watts, that's 2 really good guys.
Yeah.
Really good guys. They're both going to be really good college baseball players. So that split, obviously you take the number of kids and you split them in half, and that's hard. But deep down, I think it's the right decision for our school district to split, because we're so big.
Yeah, it was getting...
we're so big, and, you can think, well, what happens? I have people say, what happens if they would have stuck together? Do you think? I said, I don't know what would have happened, but we have more kids getting opportunities in our community, and that's what's important. Us winning 10 more games a year opposed to 30 more kids getting to play sports, or 50 It doesn't.
And extra
compare.
guys to develop as well.
Right.
'Cause, like,
Yeah, you're
some of those
taking-
guys might have quit.
They
weren't
would
able
quit.
to play.
You're
and then-
exactly right. You're taking a kid that may have been the 20 best kid as a junior or senior. Now he's one of the top 10. So what is, like you said, so what's that do to the kid that was 20 to 40? Now they're becoming 10 to 20.
Everybody develops at different ages. Guys mature at different. They hit their growth spurts. You can kind of talk about managing those type of guys and trying to like keep them in the program type of thing.
Yeah, and you're 100% right at that. And I've said this a lot. The best kid at 10 years old isn't always going to be the best kid at 18. Or the best kid in junior high is not going to be the best kid when he's a senior. So to try to keep kids involved, and I get it, because you have some kids at freshmen that are 5'3", and you got other freshman kids that are 6'3". So now we're trying to think, okay, if you look at one of the smaller kids and let's say his mechanics, his arm works right, his bat's in the right spot, and, he's got good swing plane. Well, he's going to have a tough time competing against a kid that's matured and twice as strong as he is. So when I started in 12 here, I wanted kids to be a part of it because I was a kid that wasn't the best as an 8th or 9th grader. I was okay, but I was way better as a junior and senior. Well, if our coach would have not given me a chance when I was little, I may have quit.
Yeah.
So we've always tried the best we can. It doesn't always, I'm sure there's somebody who's going to say, well, yeah, but this one kid. But we try at the freshman level to play. When we have a doubleheader, we try to play 2 sets of teams. We try to play 18 to 20 kids each doubleheader. And I have people that absolutely hate that because, well, how are you going to get your top kids better without letting them play both games? But then I go back to, well, what about that kid that's number 15 right now? And in the next 6 months, he's going to hit, he's going to hit puberty and he's going to change. Yeah. And in 3 years, he's now going to be one of our top guys.
Dude, yeah.
You want to talk about Matt Bolenbach? Matt Bolenbach was that kid. And I'm not kidding. As a freshman, he was a B team and pitched some C team games for us. And no one ever knows that. Well, look at him now. He's still trying, and he has had chance. And that was a long time ago. I've had kids that played JV, and we have JV schedule. So as we were really big and had a ton of kids out, we've had 2 teams as freshmen that we tried to play as many kids. Sophomore really is our toughest year because we have 1 team, and we try to win both games. So it's kind of the first year where people are like, oh, crap, I'm not that guy. And then if they stick with it as a junior, if they're not playing varsity as junior, we get them 18 to 20 games as juniors, which I think is vitally important. Because as seniors, now they become the guy. They at least have experience of playing games.
Yeah. Well, getting game experience goes so far, and more baseball is always what everybody needs. More baseball. So.
I 100% agree with that. And it's hard for our juniors that say, I want to be a varsity guy, but they're not quite good enough yet to play for us. But if they get chances for a junior year and they get 50 to 60 at-bats at the JV level, well, that's better than sitting on the bench and getting no at-bats at the varsity level, So that's where I try, you talk about kids develop different. I feel, and our coaching staff feels, we have given kids those opportunities to continue to play that way. And if you stick with it, I'm not saying it works out for everybody, but if you stick with it, you get stronger, you put time in, you've given yourself a chance. Your junior year, even if you're not a varsity guy, you're still playing baseball. So that's kind of how we've tried to deal with the developmental stage of kids. Because you're right, there's some kids at age that are 13 years old or 12 years old as an 8th grader that are just monstrous.
Yeah.
Well, they may be done growing. Mm-hmm. So we try to keep kids going that way.
Yeah. When I know a lot of kids like I played with growing up, like some of them I would never have expected to be some of our dudes on the varsity level, and they ended up being really good players for us later on.
Yeah. I think back to I have another kid that was a first-team All-State pitcher in 2016. He threw 3 innings as a junior, varsity innings, but pitched pitched during JV games. His name was Walker McDonald, and he went from, he was a small kid growing up, but he just kept with it, had a really good JV year his junior year, And then all of a sudden he was our number one guy and went like 10-0 or 10-1. And he won the first round of the state tournament game for us. And this kid wouldn't have, if we didn't have those JV games for him, I think he would have still played baseball, but I don't think he would have been as good because he wouldn't have had a chance to pitch in games.
Yeah, I mean, especially as a pitcher, like not being able to see like batters live.
You've got to, right. Have and understand how that all works. You need experience throwing curveballs. You need experience doing that. You need to work with your catcher so you feel comfortable with each other.
Gotta have that chemistry down and everything for it.
Absolutely have to.
Sportsplex is right in your kind of stomping grounds with your baseball guys. So a lot of the guys play sticks as well as Waukee. How's that kind of relationship look?
I think both programs benefit from it. I really believe that. I know when I started here in 2012, I talked a lot with Mike and Pat, and we wanted it to be a deal where we helped each other all the time. And I think us having had a chance to have a winning program has helped more kids want to play baseball. I really believe that. Because kids want to play for a team that has been successful.
Yeah, I remember growing up,
Right?
I would always go to state game, and I'm like, I want to be that guy.
Right, because you want to be. Well, since we had a chance to be successful, I think more kids played. Well, once more kids started playing, the opportunity to get better was they can come here at Sportsplex in the off season. Well, not only did I hope that I helped grow the number of kids that wanted to play baseball in our community, which I'm not taking credit for it. I just hope there was something that added to that. But when kids play more baseball, guess what? They become better at it.
Yeah.
So that makes us better. So that relationship has helped because I think it's created a lot better baseball players in the area. I really do, because now they have an avenue to play fall ball that is not traveling out of state. They have that avenue to come and have open cages where we can't do that. We can't work with hitters until
especially with like
day.
the state restrictions and everything.
Right.
So it's I would say it's pretty cool that like just the relationship being able to kind of like piggyback off of each other.
They have a chance to do that, right? That chance that there's opportunities, and there's a bunch of them in the area. So I think that's helped grow the game as there's chance to get better, and a lot of kids have taken that opportunity.
Dave, thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And that's all we got time for this week on Plexcast. Plexcast is brought to you by Sportsplex West, Sportsman Media, and Sportsman Solutions.